John Dopson is a player you definitely never heard of until I just said his name 3 seconds ago. Dopson was a starting pitcher who pitched in Major League Baseball for 8 seasons from 1988 to 1994, playing for 3 teams, but spent the most time with the Red Sox, spending 5 seasons in Boston. In his career, he threw 725 in the third innings across 144 games, where he went 30-47 with a 4.27 ERA, 98 adjusted ERA, 1.401 whip, and a 5.4 WAR. He had a couple of decent seasons, but is about as average as you can get. While 8 seasons in the big leagues is fantastic, only twice did he have a qualified season, and 3 times he threw fewer than 20 innings. So he stuck around in baseball for a while, but often didn't pitch much. In particular, his Wikipedia page not only does not have a photo of him, it's a mere 3 sentences long. At least he'll be remembered for being the last pitcher to balk 4 times in a single game. Should anyone tie that feat, his page might dwindle down to 2 sentences long. Dopson had about as forgettable career as one could have, probably only remembered by avid fans of the team he was on for those few years. However, during his time in Major League Baseball, he had a bizarre season coming in 1988 as a Montreal Expo. That year, Dopson actually had the best season of his career, where in 168 2/3 innings pitched across 26 games started, he recorded an ERA of 3.04, adjusted ERA of 118, a 1.233 whip, and a 1.9 WAR. He was good, but it was short-lived, as his ERA, adjusted ERA, and whip all regressed the following season, and he would never have another year as good as his 1988 one. While it was a good season, it wasn't outstanding. Based on the stats I mentioned, there's nothing out of the ordinary about it, so why is it bizarre? It's bizarre due to his win-loss record. In the past, I made videos about pitchers who had great seasons but had a poor win-loss record due to a lack of run support and inefficient bullpen. So, what was Dopson's win-loss record in 1988? 3-11. 3-11. For a pitcher to have that good of a season to end with a win-loss record that lousy and such few wins is almost unheard of. I can understand a bad pitcher finishing the season with a win-loss record of 3-11, but a good pitcher? And yes, I made videos about Joe McGrain going 5-9 and Shelby Miller going 6-17 despite even better seasons than Dopson, but at least they won more than 3 games. Not to also mention, their records are technically better than Dopson's, as he had the worst overall win-loss percentage at .214. Dopson's 1988 season is intriguing. It's incredibly rare to see a pitcher of that magnitude finish with a record that low. How rare? To see just how much of an anomaly John Dopson's 1988 season is, let's compare it to other seasons all time. First, let's look at Dopson's 3 victories. Among all National League, American League pitchers in the modern era, excluding the shortened 2020 season, there have been only 31 pitchers to have a qualified season and win no more than 3 games. Of those 31, Dopson is the only one to have an above average adjusted ERA. Naturally, if a pitcher isn't good, he'll probably end up with a low number of wins. It isn't surprising to see bad pitchers with these low win amounts, especially if they were on a bad team, but Dopson was a good pitcher on a Montreal Expos team that had a .500 record. No excuses from the Expos there, they weren't even bad, and we'll get back to them later. Despite 31 other qualified pitchers, many had varying amounts of decisions in games started. Sure, some pitchers also only won 3 games, but they had fewer opportunities than Dopson. If we take this list of pitchers and add a minimum threshold of 26 games started, Dopson is now just one of 6 pitchers ever to start at least 26 games in a qualified season and have no more than 3 victories. Again, those other 5 pitchers are explainable, as they had poor seasons on really bad teams. In fact, the average number of losses the teams had for the other 5 occurrences was 105. So take a bad pitcher, put him on a really bad team, and he ends up with a tiny amount of wins. Makes sense. Dopson is the exception. He was a good pitcher on an average team. The 1988 Expos went 81-81 and actually had a positive run differential, so they played better than average during the year. Yet somehow, Dopson won a measly 3 games in 26 attempts. To give an idea on how low that number is, starting pitcher Hideo Nomo of the 2004 Dodgers started 18 games, in which he recorded an ERA of 8.25 and an adjusted ERA of 50. He won 4 games. The second fewest number of wins for a pitcher to have to match Dopson's 118 adjusted ERA and start at least 26 games was 5 by Jose De Leon of the 1991 St. Louis Cardinals. You get it by now. Dopson is in a league of his own in terms of good seasons with low win amounts. But what about his win-loss record? It's not bad enough Dopson only won 3 games. He lost 11, nearly 4 times that amount for a .214 win-loss record. There have been exactly 50 pitchers in the history of Major League Baseball entering 2023 to start at least 26 games in a season and record a win-loss record percentage at or under than .214. Of those 50, only 5 have an adjusted ERA above 100, and as you can expect, Dopson has the best mark of those 5. Also, at the time of his 1988 season, it had been over 50 years since the last occurrence. Strangely enough, of those 5 instances, 3 occurred in one season, 2019, with 2 coming on the same team. Dopson's .214 winning percentage is naturally the lowest percentage for a pitcher to start at least 26 games and record an adjusted ERA of at least 118. The second lowest mark is .261 by Shelby Miller in 2015. Both pitchers are the only ones in the live ball era to fit these criteria. 26 games started in a single season with a 118 or higher adjusted ERA and a winning percentage under 300. 2 pitchers in the live ball era and 6 pitchers overall. Also for comparison, Edwin Jackson of the 2014 Cubs started 27 games and recorded an ERA of 6.33 and an adjusted ERA of 60. His win-loss record was 6-15, which equates to a .286 percentage. More than double Dopson's ERA, yet double the amount of wins and a higher win-loss percentage. The big question is, how does this happen? How does a solid pitcher on a decent team have such a terrible win-loss record and such few wins? Well, if you watched my previous 2 videos regarding this subject, or remembered from earlier in the video, good pitchers can have lousy records due to a lack of run support and a bad bullpen. The thing is though, the Expos bullpen that season was terrific. In 1988, Montreal's bullpen ranked 8th out of 26 teams in ERA. I went through all 26 of Dopson's starts and found only a handful of instances the bullpen blew a would-have-been win for him. We can't fault the bullpen for Dopson's criminally low win total. I thought Dopson might have so many more losses than wins due to him being a drastically worse pitcher in games he lost than games he won or took a no decision. However, that isn't the case. In his 3 wins, Dopson has a 1.66 ERA and in 12 no decisions, a 3.12 ERA. In his 11 losses, a 3.39 ERA. That is bizarre. Dopson was still a solid pitcher in games he didn't win, yet still took 11 losses and 12 no decisions. Even in Shelby Miller's 17 losses, he wasn't a good pitcher at all, posting a 4.44 ERA. Dopson, on the other hand, was a good pitcher in games he lost. So if John Dopson was a good pitcher in 12 games he took a no decision, and a good pitcher in 11 games he lost, and had a solid bullpen to support him, how exactly did he finish the season 3-11? Let's just say, in the games Dopson started, the hitting was really, really bad, along with a few general factors. In 6 of Dopson's 11 losses, he allowed 2 or fewer earned runs. In fact, out of Dopson's 11 losses, only once did he allow more than 3 earned runs. Similarly, he allowed 2 or fewer earned runs in 7 of his 12 no decisions, and once again, only once did he allow more than 3 earned runs. As you can probably tell, the hitting went ice cold in games he started. In all 26 games Dopson started in 1988, the Expos scored a total of 85 runs, which is roughly 3.27 runs scored per game. For reference, 3.27 runs scored per game would have been ranked last over the course of a full season. The average runs scored per game among all MLB teams that season was 4.14, while the team that scored the fewest runs was the Baltimore Orioles at 3.42. The Expos themselves weren't a great offensive team to begin with, placing in the bottom third in runs scored per game. But when Dopson took the mound, The Expos hitters might as well have been wearing a blindfold at the plate. Going back to Dopson's 11 losses, as just mentioned, he recorded a 3.39 ERA in those games, allowing 26 earned runs in 69 innings pitched, or 2.3 runs allowed per game on average. In those same 11 games, the Expos themselves scored a grand total of 21 runs, less than 2 runs per game. I would like to repeat that because it sounds vaguely important. In Dopson's 11 losses, he allowed on average 2.3 runs scored per game, while the Expos averaged 1.9 runs scored per game. If that's not an indication for how horrible the run support was, I don't know what is. John Dopson was one of the most forgettable players in Major League Baseball history who had one of the most average, unremarkable careers. However, in the midst of his time in the big leagues, he had one of the most bizarre pitching seasons ever, one we may never see again.